So, Jonathan, you're a big fan of small government, and then if we're going to help each other, help as a community. But in many cities, it's illegal for me to go help a homeless person. I can't
Right.
feed them. I can't take them into my home. I can't offer them a job and pay
Oh,
them
absolutely.
a certain
Absolutely. The
way.
government should have no say so in that. If you want to go
Yeah,
out there and help, social fabric is so important when it comes to small government. And that's something that kind of bleeds over to the left side, right?
Yeah.
Social
Yeah.
fabric, right? Because at the end of the day, religious organizations, whatever your personal feeling is on religious organizations, to step in as well. Churches should step in. We shouldn't have mega churches with pastors living in multi-million-dollar mansions. If you have that additional, that money should be pumped into the community as well, not just the government paying for that. And the government should stop regulating your ability to, I'm just going to use this as an example because I think it's absolutely ridiculous, collect rainwater and help a homeless person, give them a job. That should not be something that the government regulates. As a social fabric, we should look after our own. That comes as part, that sides with small government, right?
Yeah.
And when you looking as an abolitionist, right, completely removing police, that's shrinking the government big
Yep.
time. That
And
is
prisons
shrinking
as
the government
well.
big time. And
Absolutely.
even though I'm not an abolitionist, right, I believe that we still should have a police force, a different police force than what we have now, but a police force nonetheless. At the end of the day, when we do shrink these budgets and we do cut these budgets, there has to be a social fabric that comes in, and we have to start helping each other out to make up for where the government's gone. And we can do that easily. We don't need the government to do this stuff. We can do
Yeah.
this on our own.
And it's great to hear you say that because we certainly agree in that area. We both have faith in the ability of our communities to help each other and to build each other up. There's so much being done to prevent us from doing that right now. But whether it's defunding and demilitarizing or abolishing, we should be and are able to rely on each other to mediate circumstances, to rehabilitate, to face consequences that are not arbitrary and carceral. So, in a lot of ways, I think, when it comes down to it, our intentions are pretty similar. We want the same results minus the extent to which we're willing to go to make, these fundamental changes in the criminal injustice system.
yeah.
Oh,
That's what I
absolutely.
love
I mean,
about our. Oh,
yeah.
sorry, Jonathan.
No, go
That's what
ahead.
I love about our independent media and taking the time to have this type of discussions because you would never hear about it in traditional media. If
Right.
anything, they just try to push us apart and make it seem as if we didn't have anything in common and we want different things. But we find time after time when we sit down and talk about the issues facing society, we have way more in common than people want us to believe. So that's what I love. Were you going to say something,
Great,
Jonathan?
man.
No, I was just going to piggyback on that. I mean, when we started this podcast, I mean, both of us were on our polar opposite on the spectrum when it comes to where we stand on social. I'm not a social conservative. I have no problem with gays getting married. I'm not. I believe in absolute separation of church and state, which means religious views should have nothing to do with how you vote when it comes to a legislative portion. And that's what drives me nuts about the Republican Party is they blur that line when it helps them, and then they stand by it when it doesn't. So civic conservative, I mean, from that standpoint, we come from a complete opposite standpoint on a lot of things. But when you sit down, right, and you're able to have a civil conversation, not allow emotion to get involved, you find that there's a lot of common ground on a lot of issues, and you're able to work things out. And just to piggyback off what Paco said, absolutely, this kind of discussion is very, very, very important.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I was actually, excited to have you as a part of this because most of the conversations that I have are with people who either agree already or are on the left and are, just hesitant to go full force the way that I have. And, I think like what we're doing, what we've done over the last 45 minutes has demonstrated how capable we are as human beings to identify commonality, which given the opportunity could lead to really positive change. So I'm really glad you guys are doing this podcast. I'm glad you had me on, and I hope you keep it up and address, different issues in the same way every time you do it.
Absolutely. It was a pleasure talking to you. Maybe we can do a round two sometime soon.
Sure. Yeah.
So
To talk about, we can answer all the common questions next time, like how it works. I think, people like the sound of some of this, but they think it's impossible. And, on 10forjustice.com, we talk about actual ways of implementing it and what it will look like.
yeah, absolutely. Let's make that the goal next time. Thank you so much for coming out today, Awkward. It was great to have you. Thanks again, Jonathan. And we'll talk to everybody soon.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.